I think you're good, yeah.
Okay, great. My first weekend in Kingston and Plymouth was the first weekend in June, and this year that was the Feast of Corpus Christi, where we celebrate the Feast of the Body and Blood of Christ. And actually, my first Sunday, I was actually in Plymouth. And so I told this story to people at Mass that day. And it goes back when I was first ordained. When I was first ordained, I was 27 years old. And to put that in perspective, I get a haircut today down here on 3A, the place on 3A, heading down towards the Big Y. And I was all done, the guy asked me if I get the 62-year-old discount. I almost refused to pay him anything at all. It's the first time I asked that. So I was 27, I was about to turn 28. And one of the great things about, I was in St. Richard's and Danvers. You know, and growing up, I grew up in Quincy. You know, Danvers was like the other side of the moon. It was another world up there. But it was a big parish, it was a young parish, there was a great pastor there. And one of the things I enjoyed was there's a really active ecumenical group. And the ecumenical group were the other ministers in the town, the other Christian ministers. So there were two congregational churches. There was a great guy that was the pastor of the Methodist church in town, Bob Hannon. He was a wonderful man. There was an Episcopal priest. There were a bunch of us. And so we actually did a couple of things together. But we'd also get together like every couple of weeks to have breakfast and just talk. Well, one of the congregational ministers was this guy by the name of Chris. And Chris was like 28 years old, 29 years old. He was my age. He was married. He had a couple of kids. And his church, his parish, First Congregational Church in Danvers, was really about a quarter of a mile from my rectory. It was in my neighborhood. I could walk up to it. And so over the course of our time together, you know, we became friends just because we did a lot of stuff together. We're about the same age. We were in the same business, right? We believed the same things. And so we became friends. And after about 2 or 3 years, he had to move on to another parish, another church, because, well, there weren't many congregationals in Danvers, and so the church wasn't big enough really to support his family. So he was going, I think, like to someplace like Ohio, and he was going to become a pastor of a big church there. So his last weekend, I decided to walk up to his last Sunday service. And so I attended the service, I stood at the back of the church, and afterwards there was a reception. Now, the thing I didn't tell you about my friend Chris is he was a congregational minister, but he was born and raised a Roman Catholic. And so he left the church at some point and became a Congregationalist. And so after the service is over, I'm standing in the reception hall, and he and his wife come over, and I'm talking to them. And I finally said to him, I said, I'm really going to miss you. I said, but I have to ask you a question. I said, you know, you're really good at what you do. And I said, you believe. I got to ask you, I said, why in the world did you ever leave the Catholic Church and become a Congregationalist? Anyone want to guess what his answer was? What do you think?
You wanted family?
Yeah. He said, listen, I thought God would call me to be a priest, a minister. So I couldn't do that to be a Catholic priest, so I left the Congregational Church, I left that church and a Congregational minister, and this is what I'm doing now. So then he looks at me, and guess what he asked me? He said, don't you want to be married? Don't you want to have kids? I said, well, yeah. He said, well, why in the world would you still be a Catholic priest? Why don't you become something else? And I tell you, I was raised in a traditional Catholic household, and I believed all this stuff. I guess I didn't realize how deeply this was ingrained in me. But without even thinking, I said, well, the Eucharist. So I can't go someplace where the Eucharist isn't. And I was surprised by how deeply that was rooted in me. You know, and I think you can kind of extend that, not just to the Eucharist, but the sacraments, because sacraments are a particularly Catholic thing. Now, if you were here last month, Father Cullity, I heard his talk last month, one of the nights, and he was talking about grace. You know, and grace for us, we believe what grace is grace is a real encounter with God. For us, you know, a definition of grace might be, it's the stuff that God has made, it's the very life of God, right? So whenever we celebrate the sacrament, we believe that grace is given to us. And a lot of times theologians like to give big names to things, and they'll say, well, that grace can be efficacious, which just means we believe that grace is real, and we believe that grace can do something in our lives. It's not that you can't get that grace other places, it's just that these are a guarantee that whenever we do one of these 7 things, that grace is made available to us. And baptism is the foundational sacrament. So I'm not talking about baptism tonight. And I'm not talking about what it does and why I think it's important. And I'll give you the background about how I kind of thought about doing this. You know, we work with adults like, listen, how many people here remember their baptism? Once in a while I get someone, because someone's old. Why don't you remember your baptism? Yeah, your baby, right? We baptized, really. I was, like, my dad's parents came from Ireland. I was born in the middle of August. I would bet you I didn't get to the month of September without being baptized, right? It was done, we did it like right away. In fact, if people hesitated, we'll have grandmothers baptize kids in the back. Right? And those count, by the way, those count, right? But so we baptize young children, and we'll talk about why, but because of that, a lot of what we do at baptisms is directed towards the parents and the adults who are there. And so I like to point out some of the things, like we use a number of symbols during the course of a baptism. And those symbols are meant to remind us or to teach us about what's happening. And so I'm going to walk through those symbols tonight. Now there's one symbol that I absolutely have to use in baptism. Anyone want to hazard a guess at what that is? I'm really Tim off, but you know about answering this because you went to school for this stuff. Yeah. And what's one symbol I have to use? Huh? Have to use water. The reason why, because you know the old definition of a sacrament is it's not what's on given by God that gives grace. There's that grace. Given by God, we're told to do it. So if you actually open the Bible in the Gospels, Jesus says, I want you to make disciples, and the way that you make them is you baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And the word baptism literally means to immerse in water. So you have to have water, right? So we'll use, that's one symbol. But we use some other symbols I meant to teach us. What's another thing that I use in baptism?
Oil.
Oil, how many?
1.
2. So yeah, 2 oils, right? So we have 2 different oils that we use. And actually there are 3 oils that we use in the course of a year in the life of the church. Sacred Chrism, the oil of catechumens, and then the oil of the infirm. And so, in all those oils every year, they're blessed once a year. And they're blessed for us by the cardinal at the cathedral. And we usually have our Chrism Mass where we bless the oils on the Tuesday of Holy Week. All the priests come and do the baptismal, they're priestly promises, and we actually pick up these bottles of oil and we bring them back to the church. And so we use oil in baptisms, we use oil when we confirm people, we use one of these oils when we ordain priests or deacons or bishops. We use the oil if we consecrate an altar. We use the oil of the sick when someone is sick or dying. So we use these oils in the course of the life of the church. And so we use the 2 different oils, and I'll get to those in a second. What's another symbol that I might use? Any other guesses? Give me one. The soul. Well, the garment, right? The white garment. You ever see we use a bib? That's a white garment to put on the child. Sometimes the white garment, rather than a bib like this, some families have these baptismal garments that, like my first baptism here, I had 2 families, and both families had 5 generations baptized in the same dress. That's a baptismal garment. And one more.
Candle.
The candle, right? The candle. And how many candles? 2. There's 2. Really, there's 1, right? There's 2. I'll give you. There's a small candle like this. And then there's the big candle, right? If you go into the church, right now it's off to the side over the baptismal font. During the Easter season, it's dead center. It's a big, tall Easter candle. So these are the symbols that we use. Now, I'm going to start here with the oil. And I love the sacrament, the symbol of the oil, because what it does is it calls to mind the 2 great traditions that form our faith. If you want to think of the 2 great traditions, think of the Bible. If you open the Bible, there are 2 sections: the Old Testament and the New Testament. And both those cultures use oil, but for different reasons. And so, like the first oil that I use, goes back to the founding of our church, and the Christian church. And that Christian church was founded in the Greco-Roman world. And within that culture, oil was thought to be, it was almost thought to be like magical. Like, for instance, if someone was sick, and by the way, when I use oil, I kind of put a little oil on the forehead, or this anointing actually takes place just on the top of the chest. We use a little bit. They poured it on the people. If you read the Old Testament at one point, it speaks about the oil running down the beard of the person who's anointed. But so we go back to the Greco. It was thought to be magical. So in that world, let's say if someone was sick, well, it was thought if you brought them to someone and they anointed them with oil, that oil was supposed to make them stronger. It's supposed to cure them. Well, maybe one of the best images would be the ancient Greek Olympics, the original Olympics. And think about those athletes, they'd strip down, and what would they do next? They put oil on themselves. The reason why they do that is it was thought that oil would like increase their stamina or their speed or their strength. Well, we believe that when we celebrate any sacrament, that we receive a type of strength. But it's not a physical strength, but it's a spiritual strength, the strength we need to be faithful disciples. And so the prayer actually is, be strengthened with the gift of this Holy Spirit. We actually use those words. And we anoint the child right here under the collar at the beginning of the baptism. The second oil that we use is sacred chrism. This is a much, much older use of oil. And to understand how it's used, you have to understand the way that the Jews in the Old Testament kind of saw the world. And it was different from the way that I was taught to see the world. So when I was growing up, I was taught that if I wanted to talk to God, what would I do? I'd pray, right? I could just pray. I'd go to my room and pray, right? I'd go to the church and pray. I could sit, while you guys were over there, I was sitting at this table, I was doing my prayers. We could pray. That's not an Old Testament idea. They kind of thought, well, God was up here. Now think of the story of Genesis. When God creates everything in the beginning, right? God and people are what? They're together. What happens after Adam and Eve commit the first sin? They get separated. They get thrown out of Eden. So there's a separation. That separation is what we call original sin. So God's here, and the people are here. And in that mindset, no matter what we do down here, we really can't reach out to God because we're separated from Him. But God can reach out to us. So what God would do in the Old Testament was, if you want to interact with His people down here, He kind of raised up special people. And they become like His intermediaries. They have the special role of kind of communicating some message from God to His people. And there were three different types of people. And these people that were raised up by God, as a sign of their unique role, they were anointed with chrism. And think about it. If we went downstairs talking to the kids right now, right? I said to them, what's Jesus' last name? What would they say to me? They'd say, it's not His last name, right? It's His title, right? Christ. Well, we call Him the Christ because He's the one that's anointed. He's the one anointed with chrism. Well, there are a bunch of Christ figures in the Old Testament. And these different type of Christ figures, these anointed people in the Old Testament were the priests, the prophets, and the kings of Israel. Now the priests, well, they were the ones that could do something that most people at that time couldn't do. They could read. They could look at the Scriptures, what we call the Old Testament. They could tell people the commandments. They could speak the Word of God. They could tell people what they were supposed to do. The second group of people were actually kind of rare. They were the prophets of Israel. Now, when I say prophet, anyone ever guess what a prophet is? Anyone? If someone is a prophet, a lot of times the kids, when I talk to high school kids, they say, prophets, they predict the future, right? We say that because we're about to go into the season of Advent. When we get to Advent, we get ready for Christmas. There's a whole bunch of readings that we have from the book of the prophet Isaiah. Now, Isaiah is like 1,500 years before the birth of Jesus. But we kind of see a lot of what Isaiah is talking about is predicting the coming of Christ. But that's not the main job of a prophet. The main job of a prophet was this. What's your name? Kristen. Okay, Kristen, you're going to be a prophet. So God looks out, and He sees all of you people, His people. He says, Kristen, these people are a mess. And either they've forgotten about God, or they're immoral, or they're doing awful things. So hey, you're a prophet. Here's what I want you to do. Go and tell those people to cut it out. Tell them to stop doing what they're doing. Tell them to start doing the right thing and get themselves back to church. How popular do you think prophets were? They weren't. In fact, prophets didn't want to be prophets. My favorite story that I tell people is, anyone know the story of Jonah? People know the story of Jonah in the belly of the whale, right? This is the story of Jonah. Jonah's just a regular guy. And one day God says, Jonah, I'm going to make you a prophet. There's a city called Nineveh over there. So those people are awful. And I want you to go over there and tell them because of the way they're living, in 40 days I'm going to wipe them out. And Jonah says, God, you want me to go there? Guess what Jonah does? He goes over there. Right? He runs away. And when Jonah runs away, He ends up in a boat, he ends up in the middle of the ocean, in a big storm, and people figure out that he's running away from God, so he gets thrown off the boat, a giant fish comes by, swallows him up, swims all the way over to Nineveh, throws him up on the shore, and he gets up and he says, okay, I guess I'm a prophet. And he walks through Nineveh, and guess what happens? People change, right? They listen to him, and they change their ways. So that's a prophet. So when we're baptized prophets. And the last group of people are the kings. And the kings come along kind of late. The thought is that they kind of lead by example. Well, the thing about us is we don't believe the world is like this. We believe that we have a connection with God. And that when we're baptized, we're all baptized priests, prophets, and kings. So like, I was baptized not this type of a priest, just like you, I'm a priest by my baptism, which means I'm supposed to speak the word of God every day by what I say and how I live my life. It also means that all of us, because of our baptism, we're prophets. And this is the hard one, because to be a prophet means it's not enough to simply not do bad things. A prophet has to actively do what is right, speak out against things that are wrong, and call people back to what is right and true and good. And then finally, we're all kings. Because of our baptism, we have special dignity. Right? So when we baptize these children, the idea is we're reminding ourselves that we're baptized. And these are the things that we're priests, prophets, and kings. The next symbol I'm going to talk about, I think I'll talk about the candle. Does anyone, by the way, still have that candle? Or their kids' candles at home? Yeah. These show up a lot now. Not so much in my generation, but the generation after us. I'll see these show up at weddings and confirmations at different times. It's a great symbol. And here's what it's rooted in. Has anyone ever gone to Mass on Holy Saturday? The Easter Vigil Mass? Yeah, most people haven't. It's the first Mass of Easter. It's held after sunset on Saturday night before Easter. And it's the most important Mass of the year. And it's unique the way we celebrate it. In fact, it starts off in the dark. And we start outside and we build a fire, we bless the fire. You know that big candle that's in the church, the Easter candle? It's called the Easter candle because we bless it on Easter, right? And we take a brand new candle every year, we bless it, we decorate it, and then it's brought into the church. The church is pitch black. And a deacon or a priest will hold up this big candle and say, Christ our light, people respond. And the whole first part of the Mass is around this large candle. So that candle has come to represent the very core of our faith, our belief in the resurrection. So think of it, when we have the baptism, people come to the baptism, and right next to the baptismal font, we have this candle, the symbol of our faith. And at some point during the course of the baptism, usually after the thing's all over, you know it's almost over, we're going to give you a lit candle, an open flame. We're not going to go too much longer with burning flames in the church. But we'll have someone come up, and so we've gone through this baptism, and you'll come up and we'll say, to the usually godparents, light the candle off. They light the candle off of the big candle. And we give it to you. The prayer is this: receive now this light of Christ. And here's the idea. Okay, you just had this child baptized. The very first thing we did at the baptism, since these kids are so small, they didn't know what was going on. We turned to the parents and said, if you're going to have your child baptized, then you're accepting the responsibility of training them in the practice of our faith. So if you do this, it's going to be your duty to bring them up to keep God's commandments by loving God and our neighbor. We'll say, parents, do you understand that you're responsible? You say, yes. That means you're promising to pass on the faith. So at the end of the baptism, we give the parents and the godparents a candle. This candle it's our faith, so we give it to you now. This candle now is given to you to be kept burning brightly. It's your job to keep it lit. The idea is that it's going to be kept burning brightly, symbolically, until these kids are old enough for confirmation to take the candle themselves. At that point, they can blow it out, or they can keep it. But it's your job to make sure that flame is kept burning brightly by making them go to church, making them go to class, by teaching them how to live as good, decent Christian people. That's the candle. I'm going to do this last. Let's talk about water. Okay, water, powerful symbol. What's one thing that water symbolizes? You know. Come on. Rebirth, rebirth. But when I was a kid, I'm 56 years old, not 62. And I was always told, I don't know if you were told this, that one of the things that baptism does is it wipes away the stains of original sin, which never seemed fair, right? Because I didn't do anything. So it's like, it's cleansing, right? That's a pretty good symbol for it. Cleanses us. How about, what if I decide I'm not going to drink water anymore? What's going to happen? What if I don't water the plants in my house? What's going to happen to them? They're going to die. So water is a symbol of life, right? Life. Great symbols, because water purifies. Baptism gives life. Baptism gives life. But here's the think of it. It's an Old Testament symbol. Because baptism was an Old Testament ritual that was transformed by us. And the people of Jesus' time are Old Testament thinkers. They see water primarily as a symbol of death. So think of it this way. When God gets really mad at the whole world and wants to destroy it, what does he do? Sends a flood, right? Sends a flood. The water comes and kills everyone. One of my favorite ones, I know when I was a kid growing up, Easter Sunday a lot of times, we'd all watch the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. People watch that. It's a great retelling. It's actually a really good retelling of the Exodus story, except Edward G. Robinson. I don't think there was an Old Testament character, Edward G. Robinson. So think of that story, the party of the Red Sea is a great baptismal symbol. Think of it. On one level, the Israelites here, they're slaves. The Red Sea, the other side. They go through the water, they're slaves, they're free. But here comes Pharaoh's chariots and his charioteers. And they're going to go out, they fall, they go into the Red Sea, and they get about halfway through, what happens to them? The water comes crashing down in, they're all killed, right? So water is a symbol of death. So think of it now. You're living, you either see this or you hear about this. Jesus walks on water. My contemporary mind says, wow, that's a miracle, right? People of that time would say, holy smokes, this guy's more powerful than death. He can even overcome death. It's a powerful symbol. And so we use water. Water in baptism means to immerse. So think of this symbolism. I baptize you. Boom. You're dead. You're experiencing the death of Jesus Christ. You come out of the water. You said what? Rebirth. Resurrection. You experience the resurrection. We believe in baptism. We actually are changed. We experience the death and the resurrection of Christ. Go back to that way of thinking of the world, the Jewish way of seeing the world. God's up here. We're here. And we're separated by original sin. And no matter what we do here, we can't get there. We live here, we die here, we stay here. But God loves us. And so since we can't go from here to here, what does God do? He goes from here to here. That's Jesus Christ. That's the incarnation. That's God becoming one of us. So Jesus becomes one of us, takes on our human nature, lives our life, experiences our death, then rises from the dead. And because of the resurrection in his human body, he changes us, our very nature forever. So when you're baptized, what happens is you experience that. You experience the death and the resurrection of Christ. We're changed in a drastic, fundamental way so that we now can go from here to here. That's what baptism does to us. That's why the last symbol we use is this. There are some sacraments, the baptismal garment. It's white. Sign of purity. There's more than that. We believe that some sacraments are so powerful that when we experience them, they actually change our very nature. The theological term is they change us at an ontological level. There's something about us that's just drastic. We're different people after the sacrament than before. So like when someone's married, you're changed in a fundamental way forever. You can't undo it. When I was ordained a priest, they didn't call me a priest. That sacrament changed my very character, my very nature. Baptism changes us. It changes us so that we're capable of living forever. So we take this baptismal garment and we place it on the child. And then the prayer actually is, see in this white garment the outward side of your new Christian dignity. It's a way of saying, as I look at that child now after baptism, I can see there's something different. Remember, everything we say about that child, we say about us. We're different too because of our baptism. So we use these symbols to remind us about what's happening and what's happened to us. So we have all these symbols of baptism. Now there's one time in the life of a Christian where a number of these symbols are going to show up again. Anyone want to hazard a guess when we see these symbols again? Together. Anyone? Yeah. Funerals. Funerals. I had a funeral the other day. Guy, well, I guess a wonderful guy who I didn't have the privilege of knowing, who was in this parish for a long time, he and his wife. Did a lot of things. He was a great example of what it meant to be a person that lives your faith. So he dies, and the family, he was living in Rhode Island, but came back here for the funeral. So the day of the funeral, we have all these people in the church. In fact, it was a day before. It was yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday. So we walked down. I walked down to the halfway point of the aisle with my altar, with the person serving with me, and here comes the casket. The casket comes right up to me. First thing I do is I reach over, I take holy water, and I bless the casket. Why do I do that? I'm not blessing the body. I bless the body of the way. It's a way of saying, okay, we've come to this day, this person, this wonderful guy has died. You were baptized. You experienced the death and the resurrection of Jesus. That day, God promised you that you can live forever. I'm going to take the water of baptism, and I'm going to put it on the casket to remind us that this is a moment of hope. It's not. There's a great line if you come to a funeral mass. I do a lot of funerals, and it's a big part of my ministry, every place I've been. There's a great line in the preface to the Eucharistic prayer of the funeral that speaks of how we see death because of our belief in baptism. You know, the line we have is, Lord, for your faithful people, life has changed. It hasn't ended. The way it's changed, we become like God, right? But we're changed by the death and resurrection of Christ, which we participated because of our baptism. So I take that water, boom, I baptize you. You're baptized. I remember that. It's a moment of hope. The next thing I do is we get the family together, we take that big white funeral pall and place it on the casket. Baptism. The outward sign of this Christian dignity. When we take a baptismal garment, we place it over the casket. So as we're looking at it, as you look towards the altar, you see this same garment that was placed on him as a child is on his casket now because he is a child of God who has changed. And as I roll the casket to the top of the aisle, what's standing in the middle of the aisle? The Easter baptism, the big Easter candle, the baptismal candle. The symbol of his baptism, the symbol of our belief of the resurrection. All these symbols. And I tell you, it's powerful because so many people in the world think that this is all that there is, this life. We believe that this is meant to be good and great, but there's so much more that God wants from us. He wants us to the fullness of life, which we can't even comprehend. And the way that we experience that life, and we know for sure that we can experience that life, is baptism. Well, that's my little talk on baptism. Any questions? I usually have some. Any questions about my haircut? I was nervous that I was on camera.
Hopefully you stayed in the right